Welcome back, guys. Today I'm keeping things super simple. This is a very easy tutorial you can follow along with and then later try to mimic on your own. It's a clean, basic haircut. I just added a small detail to give it a nicer finish, and you'll see what I mean once we get into it. Let's get started. To set up my base length all around the head, I went in with the number 4 guard with the lever closed, and that's my foundation, the length that everything else will blend into. And the reason why this haircut's a bit simple is just because his head shape is a bit small. But normally if I'm not filming, with his haircut, I pretty much only take about 20 to 30 minutes. And if you are following along, just make sure that you go over it, once more, just to make sure you didn't miss any hairs. Now moving on to creating my baseline or bald line, whatever you want to call it. My trimmers were dead, so I had to pull out the OGs, the wall peanuts. And these are amazing. I love them, but they are loud, enough to rupture someone's eardrum, but they get the job done. Now, for those of you that are new, I do normally create the bald line with the clipper, but since I am doing it for content, content purposes, I am doing it with the trimmers and, just to shoot something satisfying, satisfying action clips. But I pretty much cleaned up everything underneath this guideline and always make sure that I leave a little bit of stubble underneath so it's easier to blend into later. But now once that's set, I'm gonna go in with my 1.5 guard with the lever closed and take it up to where I want the darkest part of my fade to start. Let me repeat that, where I want the dark part of my fade to start. That's my reference point. That's the level I'm pretty much envisioning for the top of my fade, or where I pretty much want to take that 1.5 up to. Now from there, without switching guards, just open the lever and literally start flicking out that line with a slight angle. And when I say slight angle, I'm talking about the angle of the clipper against the scalp. I talk about this a lot because the angle you use now is what eventually helps you freehand, later on. Your guards are pretty much already naturally pivoting your blade at a certain angle, but whenever you're unsure if a guard might cut too much or not, always start with a more outward angle first. Basically pull the clipper away from the head a little bit. Don't go in flat and don't apply a ton of pressure. You're just slightly gliding over that line and taking it down little by little. But like you just saw right now, think of your motion like you're creating a box. Instead of following the curve of the head inward, go straight up, especially around the parietal ridge and the crown. That keeps everything square and prevents the fade from, going up too high. But then I just came in with my thinning shears to finish, smoothing out that top area. That becomes my ceiling, my safety zone. And once this is established, I know exactly how high I can't go when I start working on the lower part of the fade. Now for the lower part of the fade, I'm going in with the half guard or the 0.5 guard. And just like I have a reference point for the 1.5, I also have a reference for the half guard. How high I take this guard is simple. It's half the distance of where I took the 1.5. However high the 1.5 stopped at, the 0.5 goes up half of that. This keeps everything balanced and makes the blending way easier. From there, I just open the lever and repeat the same exact process I used with the 1.5 open. Just lightly gliding over that line. Again, start with a bit of an angle. If nothing cuts, slowly pivot a little more into the scalp until it starts taking that line down. And if it still isn't cutting, then just start closing the lever little by little. Developing these kinds of habits though is important, guys, especially if you're newer or still learning. It keeps you organized, gives you a system to follow, and lowers your chances of making mistakes. Over time, you'll take what works from my method maybe, and you build your own style, and that's exactly what you should do. Now, I've used my hair system on a lot of different hair textures for the past 10 years, and it works for most of them. But when you're dealing with very thin hair, very thick hair, especially curly or wavy textures, things can behave a little differently. If you're a beginner, the safest approach is to start with bigger guards first. Build a system where you test things little by little instead of diving straight in and risking taking too much off. Here's what I mean. On thinner hair, start with higher guards because that type of hair can disappear quick. If you go too short too quickly, it just ends up looking like one solid length with no fade, no nothing. Starting higher just lets you cut less and stay more in control. On thicker hair, sometimes the guards you normally use won't cut as much because the hair is, dense. In cases like that, you might need to drop to a shorter guard to actually create the fade you want. The whole point is to test before you commit. Always assess the risk first. Start with the bigger guard, use a lighter angle, use less pressure, or glide over the area first. If nothing cuts, pivot the angle slightly inward. If it still doesn't cut, close the lever little by little. And if it still doesn't cut, then switch to a shorter guard. This approach keeps you safe and gives you room to adjust without ruining the blend. Over time though, you'll learn how each hair type reacts and, eventually build your own system from there. But I do want to say this, guys, beginner or not, if you still haven't tried using the thinning shears, please put the ego aside for a second, be a student, be coachable. That's how I learn everything. Even while I'm teaching you guys, I'm still learning new things myself. And thinning shears, man, I'm telling you, they completely changed my fading game. If you want to learn exactly how to use them, I'll leave a link down in the description to a video. They are a game changer, guys. I can't even count how many barbers I've met in person who doubted them until they saw me use them. And most barbers think they know what thinning shears do because maybe they tried them once or they used them the wrong way and wrote them off. But when you learn the right technique, they become one of the most powerful tools in your kit. I use them for detailing, almost my entire fade. And that's exactly what I did here before I switched to no guard with the lever closed, using a slightly more inward angle to really erase this bottom line here, my bald line. And as I worked upward, I opened the lever little by little. And in this area, guys, all you really need are small, gentle flicks, light taps, whatever you want to call this, what I'm doing. No heavy pressure. After that line blends in, these soft flicks just help bring the whole fade together. If you notice your bald line though still, didn't blend the way you wanted it to, grab your trimmer. With the blade facing the scalp, apply slight pressure, not too much. Remember what I said earlier, you always want to start with something lighter before you commit. Adjust your system until it's perfect. But to finish off the cut, I lined up the front and bro was literally falling asleep in the chair. He's a goof, he's a goofy dude, but great guy. But then, he told me, bro, give me that Mike Tyson. So I said, say less. So I did add a little feature that he wanted, and then detailed it with the blade. And I hit him with a bit of enhancements after this to his liking. And you'll pretty much see how this came out. But before I wrap this up, I do want to ask you guys something, what do you do when your client, falls asleep? Because back in the day, I used to straight up just slap him or hit him, with some alcohol. So I want to know, drop your funniest one in the comments. I'm going to pin the best one for sure. But yeah, guys, that was pretty much the entire haircut. Man, getting to 100K subs has been a little rough, but we're still pushing through. But if you did enjoy this, make sure to keep watching, subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who might learn something. Again, I'm also doing a big giveaway soon, so just make sure you're following along so you don't miss it. And I've got something exciting too that I'm sharing with you guys in the next video, so stay tuned for that as well. But other than that, I hope all of you have an amazing rest of your week. And as always, if you have any question, and I mean any question, no question is a dumb question, drop them down below, guys. Seriously, I'm always in the comments replying and helping out, whether it's the day of, a few days from now, a week, I'm still gonna answer them regardless. I appreciate every single one of you, new supporters and day ones. Peace, guys.